Just heard in the news this week about astronauts heading toward the moon. And of course, there's others up in space. In the International Space Station, it sits 254 miles above the surface of the Earth as it orbits. And you think of that perspective that those astronauts have as they look down on the Earth. And all the huge mountains, the scorching deserts, the seas, it all just presents this tranquil scene. Storms, like we have roll through, they just look like blobs of cotton floating along. So think about that. If that's what a human can see, just being at a distance, think about how God's perspective must be as he looks out, not just over space, but over time and eternity. One of the great descriptions of the Lord in Isaiah's prophecy, Isaiah 46:10, describes him by saying that him as declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times, things not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will accomplish all my purpose. He's sovereign, all-knowing, all-powerful. Nothing derails his plan. At certain points, he reveals some of those details to people. And so that's a third argument for the resurrection of Jesus, because it relates to God and his sovereign plan. The angels show the women that his resurrection is a fulfillment of prophecy that Jesus himself made during his ministry. We pick it back up in Luke 24:6 and read down through verse 8. The angels say, remember how he told you, while he was still in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and be crucified, and on the third day rise. And they remembered his words. Gospels record at least 3 occasions when Jesus predicts that. The first time he said it's in Matthew 16:21 through 23. Peter took him aside and rebuked him for it. When he said it again, in Luke 9:44 through 45, Luke tells us that the disciples simply just did not understand. And there's a third occasion recorded in Luke 18:31 through 34, where Jesus adds the details that he's going to be mocked, that he's going to be spit upon and flogged. Still, it doesn't stick. Right? Now, someone could argue, and they do, that these predictions were fabricated by the disciples later to support their claim that Jesus had risen from the dead. But this plan is also there. It's revealed. If you know about it, you see it in the Old Testament. Prophecies like Psalm 22 and Isaiah 53. We go to Isaiah 53, verses 10 through 12. It talks about a triumph after his sacrificial death. It says, yet it was the will of the Lord to crush him. He has put him to grief. When his soul makes an offering for guilt, he shall see his offspring. He shall prolong his days. The will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. And after that giving of himself, after that grief, he sees his offspring, it prospers. Verse 11, out of the anguish of his soul, he shall see and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore I will divide him a portion with the many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul to death and was numbered with the transgressors, yet he bore the sin of many and makes intercession for the transgressors. How could this suffering servant be laid in a grave and then see his offspring prosper? How could he pour out his soul to death and then continue to make intercession for transgressors? Only through the resurrection. I mean, the death of Jesus leaves the disciples distraught. But their response should have been so different. if they just would have remembered these words and understood them, they could have been confident in the sovereign plan of God. So that's one of the blessings for us, where we stand now in God's plan, that we have this whole story laid out for us. But then the question is, do we do any better with trusting the sovereign plan of God? We have this assurance of passages like Romans 8:28 that God works all things together for the good of those who love him. So does that shape our view of our circumstances, our perspective, our outlook? This whole argument of the fulfillment of prophecy and the resurrection encourages us to live with unfailing confidence in the Lord. He knows what he's doing, even when I don't understand it.